Daniel trembled because he didn't understand. Israel strikes Persia. Like the vision of the male goat, it has begun to move. Daniel fell face down. Will you dare to kneel? Both Daniel and you were called by name. But only one of you lived to see the fulfillment. He knelt under the Persian sky where desert winds lashed across his face and his soul trembled beneath the weight of what had just been seen. Daniel was not a young man, not a warrior. He was a survivor of many empires, a man taken from Zion to the greatest empire of his time, yet kept his heart from being defiled. He once opened his window and prayed 3 times a day facing Jerusalem, knowing full well the fangs of the enemy were behind him. And now he collapses, not because of threats to his life, but because of a vision unlike anything he had ever seen. A ram from the east, with 2 horns, one taller than the other. It charged westward, northward, and southward, and no one could stand against it. And then, a goat came from the west. Its feet never touched the ground. It rushed like a storm, broke the ram's horn, struck it down, and trampled it. Welcome to Prayer Station. Everything swirled into his eyes like the hot wind of the desert. But what made Daniel tremble was not the image. It was the sense that this was no mere symbol. He knew something would happen, not in his own time, but in another day, another age, when nations that once seemed unrelated would become lead actors on the final stage. Daniel could not understand it all. He wrote it down, he sealed it, he waited, and he died, never seeing the vision fulfilled. But you are seeing it. You are not kneeling in the wilderness. You are not fasting for the vision. You are simply unlocking your phone and seeing a headline: Israel unexpectedly attacks Iran. And you think, it's just news. But it is not just conflict. It is a rip in time tearing open a vision sealed 2,500 years ago. You are living in what Daniel never saw the ending of. You are the witness, not him. That vision is breathing no longer a symbol, but reality. No longer dream smoke, but real fire on real ground. And if Daniel once trembled just from seeing it in a dream, then you, living in the very prophecy, what will you do? Daniel trembled because he didn't understand. You are indifferent because you don't know. He did not eat for 3 weeks, not because he was fasting by tradition, but because something inside him broke a vision too great for an aging body, a word beyond the reach of human understanding. Daniel was not afraid of war. He had lived through war. He had seen Jerusalem burn, been dragged into exile, watched empires fall and rise again. But he had never seen anything like this. He collapsed because of something no one else could see. He didn't know who to tell. No one around him understood. Even when the angel came, the explanation did not lift the weight. It only made him more silent. But you live in a world where everything is explained, where one event has thousands of videos, millions of comments, billions of words. You don't collapse, you don't tremble, you just scroll. You see Israel attacking Iran, you watch a few clips, listen to a few podcasts, nod, and move on. You don't see an angel, no vision, no dream, but you have something Daniel never had: timing. He lived in the shadow of prophecy not yet fulfilled. You are standing in the light shining through every ancient seal. He trembled because he knew too little. You are calm because you think you know enough. But the danger is not in what you have not seen. It is in what you have seen and failed to recognize. You are witnessing prophecy come alive, but think you're only watching a political headline. You are living in the appointed hour, but still asleep in your soul. You think you're outside the story, but heaven is counting each one who has eyes to see, ears to hear, and hearts that tremble in reverence. Daniel once asked the angel, "When will these things happen?" You don't need to ask, because Israel's actions today are the answer. And if that is so, will you keep scrolling as if nothing is shifting? Or will you pause, grow silent, and ask yourself, why was I born at this time? Why do I see what a prophet was not allowed to live long enough to witness? And if I can still hear these words, then maybe I shouldn't stay silent anymore. Persia was where Daniel lived. Iran is where you are now looking. He did not look at Iran through satellite maps. He did not listen to expert geopolitical analysis. He lived in the heart of it. Persia, the place of his exile, the place he was placed in the palace of his enemies, the place he was forced to change his name, learn the language, embrace a culture not his own. The place he once walked through white stone halls of royal palaces, but never let his heart bow to any throne but the one who called him in the night watches of prayer. And it was there in Persia that he saw the vision, a vision of a collision between an empire from the east and an army rising from the west. A vision of horns, broken powers, replaced screams of an invisible war that no man could stop. In those days, no one thought Persia would become a sacred symbol in the eternal storyline. But now you are living on the other side of history, where the name Persia has been replaced by Iran, and that same land is stirring again. You are not living inside Persia like Daniel. You are not a captive, you are not forced to change your name. But maybe you too are losing something you haven't noticed. Because Persia, whether an empire or a modern state, always carries a spirit. The spirit of the adversary. The spirit that refuses to bow before the Holy One. The spirit that seeks to destroy what belongs to the covenant. It was where Haman wrote the decree to annihilate God's people. It was where Esther had to risk death to enter the throne room. It was where the prayers of the exiles rose. And now it is where the sound of missiles screams through the night. You look at Iran with curiosity, but Daniel once looked at that place through tears. You are watching the conflict, but he once heard the prophecy of it through the breath of an angel. And if you pause for a moment and step back from the noise you might hear in the air today, something repeating. Not a new war, but an old spirit, a hostility that never died, a darkness that never faded, and this time it is no longer hidden in marble courts. It is rising into the sky in the modern world, and aiming directly at what Daniel once turned toward every time he prayed. Jerusalem. Do you realize you are standing inside the sacred map of prophecy? Do you see? You are looking upon the very land where the vision first began. And if this truly is repeating, then maybe this story was never about empires, but a hidden invitation buried in the timeline, waiting for your very soul to step in and write the unfinished ending. Israel strikes Persia. Like the vision of the male goat, it has begun to move. In the vision, Daniel saw a ram with two horns. It came from the east. It charged westward, northward, southward. No one could stop it. Then suddenly a male goat appeared from the west, rushing as if it never touched the ground. striking the ram with a fury never seen before. The ram's horns were broken, it fell, it was trampled. No one could save it. That vision haunted Daniel. Not just because he didn't understand, but because he felt something sacred in that collision. Not simply war, but a shift between ages. Today, no one uses the words ram or goat to describe nations, but the spirits behind them still remain. Iran, the land of the ram, an ancient empire with two horns, Medes and Persia. Israel, a small nation but bearing the mark of covenant. And now, for the first time in modern history, Israel strikes first. No more defense, no more waiting to be attacked. They charge like the male goat in the vision, swift, fierce, unexpected. You may think this is just a strategic response, a political move, a necessary military action. But if you open the scroll of Daniel and place your hand over the words once given to him by an angel, you'll realize the vision is coming alive. You no longer have to ask when, because this very act, this preemptive strike by Israel, is a knock from eternity upon the timeline of man. And if in the vision no one could stop that goat, then what happens next? A new power will rise. A great horn will be broken, a mouth that speaks blasphemy will appear, and holiness will be violated right where the temple once stood. Do you still think this is just war? Or are you beginning to see? This is a prophetic melody opening its final movement. Because if the vision has begun to move, then your soul can no longer remain still. The angel said to Daniel, "It is for the time of the end. You are living in that time." He wrote it all down. Every frame of the vision, every spiritual image, every strange movement no man of his time could ever understand. Then he closed the book, not because he wanted to, but because a command came from heaven. "Daniel, seal up these words, for they are for the time of the end." And he obeyed. He did not ask further, he did not demand explanation. He only wrote and wept, because he knew he would not live to see those words fulfilled. He knew another generation would behold them, a generation that would be awakened. And if you are reading these words, if you are living in an era where Israel is no longer only defending but is beginning to strike at the root of Persia, if you see empires shifting and your heart is no longer at peace as before, then you are the generation the vision was meant for. Not the scholars, not the ancient prophets, but you, the one living on the other side of the seal, the one stepping through the doorway Daniel only saw from afar through the mist of revelation. Maybe you've never studied prophecy. Maybe you've scrolled past names like Persia, Greece, Rome, without a second thought. But the angel was not wrong. And now you know when Israel begins to move first, when Iran becomes the point of confrontation, when everything spirals around that small strip of land in the Middle East. The book has been opened, and what is happening is no longer sealed. It no longer belongs to the past. It is the present, and you are standing inside that sacred page. Daniel once trembled before what he did not understand. You are now living in what has already been interpreted. But what will you do with that understanding? Because revelation is not for collecting, not to satisfy intellect, but to let you know this is the moment, and you were not born into the last days by accident. Daniel fell face down. Will you dare to kneel? The angel appeared, light surrounded him. A voice spoke from a place beyond the language of men. No sword, no whip, only a vision, and Daniel collapsed. Not because he was struck, not because of illness, but because his soul could not bear the weight of a word sent from heaven. His body trembled. His lips could not speak. His legs gave way and he fell face down like a man already dead. No one forced him to worship. No one commanded him to kneel, but he knew he could not stand when the word of the Holy One had touched him and the angel had to touch him. Had to lift him up, had to say, "Oh, beloved man, stand up, for the word has been sent to you." But what about you? You do not see an angel. You do not see the light. You do not hear the voice echoing from heaven. You only hear the voice of someone recounting what was written over 2 millennia ago. You only see a line of text on your phone screen and you are still sitting, still passing through the warnings as if it were just another video, still holding your reasoning like a wall of steel blocking awakening. Daniel fell because he knew he stood before something holy. You stand in the end times and no longer tremble. That is the difference between a soul that is awakened and a soul that has grown numb from familiarity with the sacred. You think you don't need to kneel? You think I've heard enough prophecy, I still have time, it's not my turn yet. But the question is not how much you have heard. The question is whether you dare to kneel. Not kneel out of fear, but kneel because you recognize you are living inside a plan greater than any reasoning. And if you still stand firm in the middle of this spiritual earthquake, then maybe you have not truly stepped into it. Daniel collapsed when the prophecy had not yet been fulfilled. You still stand while it has already begun to come true, and if that does not cause you to tremble, then you need to ask yourself, how hard has my heart become? For both Daniel and you were called by name, but only one of you lived to see the fulfillment. He was called by name, not in a crowd, not on a battlefield, but in the darkness of his private room where he had knelt to pray 3 times a day, knowing the cost could be his very life. Daniel, O beloved man. That was not just a word of comfort, it was a sacred affirmation that he was known in heaven, that his name was engraved into the redemption plan of God. Though he was merely an exile living under an empire's rule and no one on earth considered him of importance, but in heaven, he had a place. And what about you? Your name is not written in a prophetic scroll. No angelic explanation mentions you. No vision strikes you in the middle of the night. But you are the one living in the very time when every prophecy begins to take form. You are the one Daniel never got to become, the one who will see with your own eyes what he only glimpsed, the one who will hear in the real world what he only heard in vision. You were not born to stand outside, not to watch, not to say, "I didn't know." You were born to answer because Daniel lived with all his faith yet never saw the ending. But you are living in the ending and still not sure if you believe. And if that does not make you pause, then you need to remember in heaven every soul is called by name. Not just to be comforted, but to step into a role, to become the one who carries their portion in the plan of God. You do not need to be a prophet. You do not need to understand every symbol. You only need to not remain silent while the world is shifting and prophecy is calling out to those who can still hear Daniel. He trembled, he knelt. Now it is your turn. An invitation from the vision. Who else will answer? The vision has been written. The conflict has begun. The names Israel and Iran are no longer metaphors, they are the headlines. But this is not a news video and you are not an anonymous viewer. You are the one placed in this moment, not to fear, not to stand aside, but to realize there is one who foresaw all of this and is still patiently waiting for you to return. You don't need to be an expert in prophecy. You just need to be honest with your own heart. that you've drifted from him, that your spiritual life has dried up in these final days, that you've treated holy things as outdated. And now, as they begin to unfold, you realize you no longer stand among those who are awake. But grace still remains, just as the angel touched Daniel and lifted him up. This word is touching you too. Not to make you collapse in fear, but to cause you to kneel in repentance, not to make you arm yourself with swords, but to clothe you in the white garment of the forgiven. Not to make you panic, but to call you back as a child if you feel your heart trembling. Not because of the voice in this video, but because something deeper is stirring inside you. Then don't ignore it. Come back. Not to a religion, but to a relationship. Not by keeping rules, but with a heart that is broken, honest, and longing to be saved. Come back to the one who foresaw every event. The one who showed Daniel so you wouldn't have to live in darkness today. The one who appointed this moment, not so the world would end, but so those who are his could step into eternal life. And if you feel this message needs to be heard by more, share this video as a wake-up call. Subscribe to this channel because more revelations are waiting for you. Not to follow updates, but to pursue truth, because prophecy is not just for prediction. It is to prepare you to meet the one who spoke it.